Ladies and gentlemen, from the WB Studios in Charlotte, North Carolina, it's another exciting edition of the BENGEBUSTER Show. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the BENGEBUSTER Show this week, as I am super excited about this week's episode, bringing in my former tag team partner and good friend, Jeff Patton, and we're going to be discussing the Crockett Cup, and like all three that was out during the Jim Crockett era. So without further ado, right now, I'd like to bring on my partner and co-host tonight. I'm talking about Mr. Jeff Patton. Hello, Jeff. How you doing tonight?
Doing great, man. Energized now. My music was playing there.
That's right. And it's been a while since we heard that song, and man, I tell you, Jeff, I never heard that song until I met you, but I remember starting out in wrestling, coming to the BCW, and at the time you were the BCW champion, and that was your theme song. And I remember I was sitting there, before I got into wrestling, I came there and watched one of the shows, and I heard that song, and I said, "Man, somebody's coming in on a helicopter," and it sounded so cool,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That was the good old days. Speaking of craziness, Jeff, right now I know that this coronavirus thing is going around, and it shut down the whole country. It's insane.
Yeah, it has been crazy over the last few weeks. Me working in retail, I've seen it first and foremost. Man, it's craziest thing I've ever seen in my lifetime.
Yeah, it's totally nuts. I was talking to a friend of mine earlier today, and they was telling me that they work for Walmart, and said that the traffic in the Walmart today was worse than Black Friday, if you can imagine that.
I can imagine. It was pretty busy where I work too, and I heard beginning tomorrow, I think, is what I saw. They're only going to allow, I know the one here where I live in Morganton, North Carolina, they're only going to allow 50 people in the store at a time.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
Yeah. And then I think they're roping off everything except for, that's what I've heard. You never believe everything you hear, but,
right.
Yeah, they're supposed to rope off everything but the pharmacy and the grocery side.
Oh, wow. So
that's the only place
So basically,
yeah,
everything else is shut down. So the only thing that you can't get, so basically at Walmart, the only thing you're gonna be able to get is food and drugs.
Apparently so.
Wow! I'm telling you, this is insane. I'm just hoping that this pandemic is over pretty quickly, so that we can all get back to to our normal lives. I know a lot of us had some big plans for this summer. And I'm hoping that that all these plans will still be able to go forward. But the main thing is getting America healthy and getting rid of this virus, and hopefully finding a cure. And like I said, we can go back and have a normal life again.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It would be great to get back to normalcy, and definitely missing sports. I know a lot of the guys are guys and gals. Oh
yeah, I mean, it seems like. The wrestling business, to me, it felt like it was starting to really pick up, and a lot of shows were booked, and a lot of opportunities for the young kids that I know coming up. And right now, everything's on hold, so we're just hoping that all this will pass over soon. But speaking of passing, let's get to our podcast this week. Jeff, I wanted to get your take. Back from 1986 to 1988, Jim Crockett Promotions had a yearly tag team tournament for $1 million, the Jim Crockett Senior Memorial Cup Tag Team Tournament, and that was a really cool tournament. It brought in a lot of great teams. What do you think, Jeff?
Yeah, I totally agree. I know the first one, they had teams from all over, and from That was back in the territory days, and had a lot of teams from different territories, and even had one wrestler that came in from the WWE, WWF it was what it was called at the time, Coco Beware, which I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. It seems like also back during that time, definitely, it was like so many teams would come together for this tournament, and like you said, it'd be teams from all over, And the cool thing about us, because back then, wrestling, it was big, but it wasn't on a television level to where you knew who everybody was unless you got the magazines, and even that, you might have saw their picture, but you really didn't understand their gimmick or how they worked or anything like that. So I thought the Crockett Cup was really cool, to be able to show people teams or wrestlers that you don't normally ever get to see.
Yeah, totally agree with that. 24, I think, was the team total in all three Crockett Cups. And,
Yes.
Yeah, some really interesting combinations. I know they had guys from the Pacific Northwest, and Mid-South wrestling was really hot then too, and they had a lot of teams in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things I want to discuss, I guess we'll start off with the very first Jim Crockett Memorial Cup. It was held, the ones in 87 and 88. It went on to become a 2-day tournament, but the inaugural Jim Crockett Cup was only a 1-day event, but it was all day long. So they actually had a afternoon show, and then they had an evening show, and it came from the New Orleans Superdome in New Orleans. The afternoon show, it drew 3,500 fans with a gate of $40,000. And then the evening edition of the Crockett Cup, it drew 13,000 people with a gate of $180,000. So, this was 1986. That was a really good gate, wouldn't you say, Jeff?
Oh, definitely. I would definitely like to wrestle in front of that many fans.
Man, that'd be nice, right? And the payoff would be even better,
Yeah, exactly.
But back then, talking about payoffs, there wasn't any contracts back then. Everybody got paid a percentage of the door, of the event, and but even at that, I mean, think about it, $180,000 for the evening show. That's a pretty good payoff.
Yes, it would be, and I would say, I always wondered, did they really pay the team $1 million?
Yeah, I've often wondered that myself. Was that a gimmick check or was that legit? I know if I'd been working and I've been working hard, and these teams that came in on these little spot shows, and they're the ones that won the Crockett Cup, I'm gonna be scratching my head going, hey, wait a minute now. I'm spilling my blood and my guts and breaking my bones, and these guys are coming in for twice a year, and they're making $1 million. But no, I think that the $1 million was definitely a gimmick, to kind of like a belt or the actual trophy of the Crockett Cup. But still, it was a great concept. It gave the people a reason to want to buy the ticket to go see what team is going to prevail and what team is going to win the $1 million. But it wasn't just a tag team tournament. They actually had at the Crockett Cup '86, they actually had 2 events. So the afternoon show had a main event, and that event was Hacksaw Jim Duggan defending the Mid-South North American title against Dick Slater, and of course Jim Duggan retained the title. And then on the evening show, it was for the NWA World Championship, Nature Boy Ric Flair against Dusty Rhodes, and Ric Flair retained the title via disqualification. But all in all, I mean, the teams and the matches on that was uncanny.
Yes, it definitely was. I still remember that North American title. Man, that thing was huge.
Yeah. And the only person I ever even though on the Crockett Cup Jim Duggan had it, but I only remember seeing pictures in magazines of Magnum TA holding. I thought to myself, that is a huge belt.
Yeah, I think I've seen a picture. I think I had a magazine back then that had a picture of Ted DiBiase with it as well.
Oh, okay.
And of course, I had another one, Ed Magnum TA with it, but that was, of course, a long time ago.
Now, Jeff, speaking of Ted DiBiase, I want to touch on this a second. I was listening to a show a couple weeks ago, and someone was talking about if you could pick somebody to be in the Horsemen that was never in the Horsemen, who would you pick? And somebody mentioned Ted DiBiase. Man, would he have not back in the '80s if he would have been in there instead of say Ole Anderson? Could you imagine how great the Horsemen would have been?
I totally agree with you. I thought he was a heck of a performer, and the sad part is at one time they were actually Vince was talking about putting the WWF title on Ted DiBiase, but that was shot down by who got to pretty much control everything back in those days.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think Ted would have made a good world champion. He definitely he was great on the stick. He was great in the ring. I mean, I don't think I ever saw a bad Ted DiBiase match. Just an all around great worker, and also from what I've understood outside the ring, a tremendously nice human being. So, man, I hate that we missed out not getting Ted in the Horseman, because I think that would have been really, really awesome.
Yes, it definitely would have been. And I know he wrote a book, and he talks about when he became the $1 million man. I know that's off the subject, but anyway, I remember. I mean, you talking about getting heat. I mean, people hated him.
Oh yeah,
all the little things. I mean, I remember he had the little kid there, and he offered him $100 if he could dribble the basketball so many times or so long.
Yeah.
And Virgil, or was it Ted? One knocked the ball away.
No, yeah, it was Ted. He told the boy, he said, "You bounce the ball 5 times for every. If you do that, I'm going to give you $100." The boy got to 4, and right when we went to 5, Ted put his foot out and knocked the ball out. He goes, "Oh, you didn't do it." And the boy, like, the look on the kid's face was priceless.
And of course, in the book, he said that after they cut the camera off, he actually did give the kid $100.
Yeah. Well, that's hearing that, it kind of reminds me of a story that George South told me. Said that there was a spot on TV one time when they brought him out there, and Ivan and Nikita were going to demonstrate the Russian chain, and for his time they were going to give him $100, and so they give George the $100 on TV. George puts the $100 in his tights, and then they put the chain on him, and then of course Nikita beats the crap out of him. And George said that when he went back to the dressing room, Ivan walked over and gave him the $100 bill back and said, "Hey man, thank you for that." And George was like, "What is this?" And Ivan said, "Hey, you earned it." And seeing something like that says a lot about those guys.
Yeah, they played their character well on TV, and you'd think Ivan Koloff and Ted DiBiase and Nikita Koloff would have been mean people, and then when you meet them or hear stories like that, hey, they're really good guys. So.
Yeah, and I know you feel the same way about this, but probably one of the nicest guys in the business is Bobby Eaton of the Midnight Express.
Totally agree with you on that one.
Man, I've never met a guy nicer than him. And I know we've spoke about him earlier on some of our other podcasts together, but I just want to touch on that for a minute, because Bobby is he's just an amazing person too. But now moving on to the Crockett Cup, it takes us to the second Crockett Cup, which was in 1987. By 1987, Jim Crockett Promotions had really, really picked up steam. They had signed a lot of big time stars, and on top of that, they had some tremendous angles running in '87. Because in '87 you had the Midnight Express had or Jim Cornette had burnt Ronnie Garvin's face. Dusty Rhodes was now the United States champion. See, the Rock and Roll Express had left, but they had left Crockett Promotions, but they had just came back. So a lot of big time things were going on during for the Jim Crockett Promotions during 1987, and with that, of course, Superstation TBS, so they had tons of coverage. So, and then this year for the Crockett Cup, they changed it up a little bit. They went to Baltimore, Maryland, but this time it was a 2-day tournament, not just 1 day, 2 nights. So during this time, on April the 10th at the Baltimore Arena, they drew 9,300 people. Okay, so during that one, the non-tournament event was a cage match. Ole Anderson had been kicked out of the Horsemen, and now Lex Luger had replaced him, so now he's the babyface. And he had a last man standing cage match with Big Bubba Rogers. Well, Jeff, what do you think about that match?
It was intense, and definitely, you think about it. I mean, it was a pretty good match with Ole and, of course, Bubba Rogers. And, of course, later on, he went to become the UWF heavyweight champion.
Yeah. Shortly after that, he left. Actually, I think he left Crockett Promotions there at the end of the summer, because I remember, he was with the Midnight Express in '87 during the Great American Bash, and I think that was the year that they actually put the bashes on television as part of the TV tapings. So that was pretty neat for the people that weren't able to go see the Great American Bash. You're able to see highlight matches on the television shows, and I remember seeing Bubba was part of that. And I think at that point in time, he may have already been the UWF champion, and he came in and was defending the belt. Matter of fact, he did, because I remember he defended it against Terry Bam Bam Gordy at one of the bashes. So yeah, but yeah, this Crockett Cup of '87 was tremendous. I mean, you had so many great teams. I think that was the first time that I got to see Bullet Bob Armstrong and Brad Armstrong, father-son tag team. They were there. You had the Mod Squad. Let's see who else. We had Thunderfoot, and I'm sorry, not Thunderfoot. Well, the Thunderfoot was at the Crockett Cup, but I was trying to say Lasertron, which of course was Hector Guerrero. But man, what a great gimmick that was. That gimmick was way ahead of its time. The Lasertron, and then of course Dusty and Nikita, the Superpowers. They were in the tournament. The Midnight Express, the Garvin Brothers. I mean, so many great teams was part of this Crockett Cup, and of course the winning team went on was the Superpowers, Dusty and Nikita, and they came down to the finals in the tournament, and they actually ended up beating Tully Blanchard and Lex Luger. And then of course the non-title main event on the second night. Now I almost missed it, but April the 11th was the final night of the Crockett Cup, and it drew 13,000 people that night. And then, of course, the non-tournament event was Ric Flair defending the world title against Barry Windham. And, Jeff, what an amazing match that was.
Yeah, most definitely was. I know, I think it went, 20, 25 minutes, and it was, wasn't no lot of rest holds. It was, back and forth, and little controversial ending. Flair, I think Wyndham did the little roll up, and then Flair pulled his trunks and pulled the trunks to roll him over, and then pulled his trunks when he pinned him.
Yep, got the 3 count.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But man, anytime that Barry and Flair worked on television, it was just it was to me, watching Barry and Flair was a lot like watching Barry and Steamboat. Like they never done the same moves. There wasn't a lot of wrist holds. It was just go 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 go. And at any given time, you didn't know who, you had no idea who you thought was going to win. Like 1 minute Flair would be on top, and then Barry would get on top, and back and forth. And man, they had great charisma together, great chemistry together. And I always enjoyed seeing Barry and Flair work each other.
Yeah, so did I. Still to this day, I say two of the probably five greatest wrestlers that I've ever seen as far as in ring performers. And you can throw Steamboat in that category as well. So
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, those guys could just go. And it was so entertaining, watching them do that. And but the Crockett Cup was really awesome in '87. I really enjoyed it. And then moving on, the very last Crockett Cup, this one kind of seemed a little bit more watered down. Also, it kind of you could see the writing on the wall that Crockett Promotions were nearing their end. The formats were a lot different in '88. But now, however, the Great American Bash, the Jim Crockett Jim Crockett Cup '88, it was in two different cities this time, not just one town, 2 nights. Now Crockett Cup is 2 days, 2 different towns. First town on April the 22nd, 1988, was in Greenville, South Carolina. It drew 4,440 people. And then the Crockett Cup on April the 23rd in the home, I call this the home arena of Jim Crockett Promotions, the Greensboro Coliseum. And Jeff, think about this for a minute. These numbers are going to blow you away. So just 1 year prior in '87, we're in Baltimore. Now, granted, Baltimore is a little bigger town, but Greensboro Coliseum is the hometown for all the major Crockett promotion events during the '80s. But it only drew 6,300 people. So with that being said, that's literally half of what they had, just 1 year prior. And that's what I'm talking about. It looked like, the writing was on the wall. Crockett Promotions wasn't drawn as well as they did in the past. But any event, the Crockett Cup '88 saw some neat matches. On April the 22nd, the non-tournament match was Gorgeous Jimmy Garvin versus Kevin Sullivan in a Prince of Darkness death match. Now, fans, what a Prince of Darkness death match was. It was a blindfold match. Now, Jeff, could you imagine being blindfolded and trying to wrestle?
Yeah, especially having to wrestle Kevin Sullivan.
Right? That little pit bull. But, yeah, I mean, what an interesting match that was. And, of course, that was leading into the huge rivalry that Jimmy Garvin and Kevin Sullivan would have during that whole year of 1988. I think they ended up at the Great American Bash that year, had the Tower of Doom, and that was that 5-tier cage, kind of like the War Games, but you had to start at the bottom of the cages and work your way down to the top. And I think later on they brought it back in WCW, and I think they called it something different, but it was basically the same concept. You started fighting at the top of the cage, and then every few minutes a trap door will open, and whoever the last team or the first team to get everybody down is the winner. And of course, different matches, different times. But anyway, that was the Crockett Cup '88, and then of course the non-tournament match for that one in Greensboro would put Ric Flair versus Nikita Koloff, who incidentally had just returned. He had been out of wrestling for a while due to personal issues with his then wife, who was sick. So he took time off to take care of her, and then came back there in '88. This time he had hair, and he ended up challenging Ric Flair. And originally he and Dusty were going to be the superpowers and having another run, but 2 days before the Crockett Cup, Dusty was on television, and there was an altercation with Tully Blanchard and Magnum TA, and Dusty came out with that baseball bat, Jeff.
Yeah, I remember that. Goodness, that was when I think Magnum was, after his accident, he was on crutches, and Tully Blanchard came out there and kicked the crutch out from under Magnum, and he fell to the floor. And Dusty came in and grabbed a baseball bat and just started swinging and accidentally nailed Jim Crockett with it, the baseball bat.
Yeah, and then thus the NWA stripped Dusty of the United States title and suspended Dusty, and then that's when the Midnight Rider debuted, and then of course the Midnight Rider challenged J.J. Dillon at the Crockett Cup, and that was a non-title or a non-tournament match as well, special attraction, if you will. But it all in all, the Crockett Cups, 86, 87, 88, they were all really fun to watch, really a different spill on wrestling. But I also liked how the tournament, it was a tournament, but they would always find a way to keep their angles running, because at some point in the tournament, the guys that had an angle running end up facing each other during the tournament, and therefore the fans there got to see a little bit more of the feud that's going on.
Yeah, except I think the first year they really didn't do anything because they had so many, wrestlers and teams from other territories, and then the second year they had, a lot of that going on. So.
Yeah, it was really neat to see though. I definitely enjoyed the Crockett Cups. I wanted to go to the one in Greensboro, but that year I'm trying to remember. It was I think I was going to be out of town or something with my parents, so I wasn't able to go to it. But I looking back, I would have if I could have attended any of them. I think I would have loved to been at the very first one, 86 in Louisiana.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, fans. Well, we want to thank you for tuning in this week for the episode on the Crockett Cup. I hope that Jeff and I taught you something about the Crockett Cup. Hopefully we covered anything or everything that you guys might question on. But right now we're going to take a break, and when we come back, Jeff and I are going to still be here. This time we're going to be telling some funny road stories that we have encountered over our years of wrestling, and hope to entertain you people, make you laugh. All that coming up next on the Binge Buster Show. Want to get your event or business advertised around the world? Then let the Binge Buster Show advertise for you. We offer a weekly show that is broadcast over all major podcast platforms, including iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, iHeartRadio, YouTube, and much more. We offer 5 levels of advertising to fit any budget. So don't hesitate. Let the Binge Buster Show work for you. For information, contact us on our Facebook page at The Binge Buster Show. We look forward to helping you and your business grow. All right, fans, we are back on the Binge Buster Show. Jeff and I are still here hanging out, and I thought what better way to end the show than to tell some funny stories, Jeff. I mean, over the years of you and I working together and putting on these shows together, and man, we have came across some hilarious things, right?
Yes, we definitely have. And I just wanted to go ahead and tell you that on April the 10th, I'm not sure exactly when this is going to air, but on April the 10th, Burke County Wrestling will be celebrating 30th anniversary of the very first event.
30 years. It's hard to believe that we've known each other that long, Jeff. It's hard to believe I'm still alive after 30 years, all the stuff that I've done and been through. But man, what a great time that you and I have had together over the years. And but fans, the cool thing about wrestling is it's not just getting out there and entertaining the fans. It's the brotherhood, it's the friendships that are created while we are creating our entertainment. We're also creating close knit friendships, and I can honestly say that. I'm not saying just because he's sitting here, but definitely my closest friend in the wrestling business is definitely Jeff Patton. We have it was like we hit it off at the beginning, and just we've always had great times together.
Yes, we have. And we've wrestled each other. We've tag team before, so we've done it all. Even we were a tag team. Remember, we had to wrestle each other.
Oh yeah, Oh yeah, that was fun. And
Yeah.
and a funny thing behind the scenes, I remember when Jeff and I become we sat and thought about this. Me and another guy named James, we had formed a tag team called Simply Perfection, and so the gimmick we had was like, every woman's dream, every man's nightmare. We were kind of like the Horsemen, but we kind of turned it up a little bit. We're better than everybody kind of gimmick. And James and I were a good team, but it seemed like, Jeff, once you and I become the new Simply Perfection, that's when it really took off. And because our thought process was the same, and man, every time we had a match with whoever it was always a great time. But behind the scenes, Jeff and I were so into this gimmick, it was crazy. Jeff went out and bought a Camaro. Then I went out and bought a Camaro. Remember, Jeff? We had almost matching Camaros. Like yours, I think was yours white and mine was green. Because I remember mine was green, but I can't remember what color yours was. But
I can't remember. I think I've had like 6 of them.
Yeah. But it was so cool. It's like, because I remember you got your Camaro. I was like, well, I got to get a Camaro then. So I went and got one, and then I called you on the phone. I'm like, Jeff, I got a Camaro now, and you're like, are you kidding? I'm like, no, I'm not kidding. And I remember when we had that building there in Morganton, we was promoting. We would make, at the time we had to have parking spaces, so you and I would park our Camaros in the building. Everybody else would park theirs outside.
Yeah, we had the garage door there in the back.
Yeah,
so, yeah, we
park our cars in there. It's like everybody. Well, why is Jeff and Tony getting that? Well, we're Simply Perfection. We can. But speaking of that building, I got a great. I guess the first story we should start off with, was Jeff and I were doing this. We were doing this tag team match. Okay, Jeff and I were the tag team champions. And we were defending against my cousin Mark and my friend Kenny, and our referee at the time was not he did not understand the concept of how pro wrestling worked, and so anyway, it's a street fight. We're doing everything, it's street. There's no rules. Okay, you're just fighting, one man on top of the other till we win. And Jeff and I ended up winning. But I remember I got pissed at the ref. I think Mark and Kenny got pissed at the ref. But Jeff, it was funny. I never heard Jeff cuss until this day. And we're out there and we're doing a street fight. And of course, Jeff and I are the heels, and we cheat, and we win, and we go over. And as we're leaving, Jeff grabs the belt, the tag belts, and we're walking back to the dressing room. And Jeff stops, walks back, gets on the microphone, cuts a promo on the ref and on the people, and says, "This is a stinking street fight. Anything goes. If you don't like it, kiss my ass."
I think that we were pissed because the ref, man, anytime we'd use a weapon, he'd try to take it from us.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
I remember we kept telling him, dude, it's a street fight. We can use anything. Anything goes.
He kept taking our gimmicks from us. I'm like, bro. Yeah. And then I do the finish, and I said, I remember by this time I was lost it. I covered Kenny, and I told the ref, count 3, and I put my foot on the rope. He goes, 1, 2. Your foot's on the rope. And I said, you stupid son of a bitch. And then instead of punching the ref, I punched Kenny as hard as I could right in the sternum. And all I remember is Kenny going, oh, my damn sternum. And he goes, I ain't the one you're supposed to be mad at. And so I'm covering Kenny. And of course, he's counting 3. And then Kenny goes, please don't hit me again. So we get back to the dressing room. And then Kenny's like, brother, what'd you hit me for? I didn't do anything wrong. I said, I'm sorry. I said, I wanted to punch the ref. And instead, I punched you. I apologize, but man, that was part of one of the many doozies, Jeff, that we have encountered over these years of pro wrestling. See, fans, a lot of you don't know this, but sometimes you go to these shows and you think everybody on that show knows what they're doing and are as trained as you are, and unfortunately, it's not. That's not the case. A lot of times you get a ring, and all you people out there listening and new wrestlers that are coming in, if you ever want to know, if you get to a show and you're working somebody, the way that you can tell whether that guy's trained or not is when you get in the ring or in the dressing room, you say, hey, lock up with me. From that lockup, you know if that guy can work or not. If that guy don't know how to lock up, he can't work. That's just plain and simple.
Yeah, you got that right. I've had some doozies, that's for sure. Wrestled some doozies of guys. Man, it's crazy. Some of the people that have come along and that we've met over the years. Just one of the funniest things I'll never forget is I can't remember what year it was, but we were wrestling. I don't know if you was with us then. It was myself. I know Big Donnie and James Brody, and it was somebody else. I can't remember who it was, but we were wrestling for a guy called the Greek.
Okay.
And he let us James and Donnie were running around with a guy. I can't remember his name now. Rob. I can't remember what his last name was, but he had a truck, and so the Greek. He talked to Greek into letting him haul the ring for him because Greek didn't have a way to haul the ring. So, so he hauled the ring. So Donnie and myself and we're in my car, and he was doing a show. I think it was somewhere close to Asheville. It wasn't in Asheville, but it was around that area. And it's about an hour away from where we lived. So we met Rob, and Rob had the ring. They had the ring already on the trailer, and I'm following him, and we're going up. We're in Marion, and Rob is flying, man. I mean, he's doing, I know the speed limit was 70 miles per hour, but when you're hauling a ring, you got to go slower than 70. He's going 70 miles per hour, and I'm behind him, and man, that trailer starts weaving back and forth and back and forth, and it's weaving further and further toward the outside of the road, the white line, and it got to the point where it swung over, and before he finally decided to pull off the road and stop.
Oh no!
And James Brody rode with him, and when we stopped, James looked at me and said, "I ain't never been so scared in all my life." I turned around and looked out my window, and I could see the ring.
Are you serious?
Passenger side window, yeah.
Oh my gosh!
So yeah, I'll never forget that one. That one was that was crazy. I can't believe he saved it, and none of the ring fell off. I just told him, I said, "Dude, I know you're in a hurry. Just slow down."
Yeah, it's funny, and I'm trying to think of some more funny stuff that happened at some of these shows. Oh yeah, what about the time that we were doing the fair show, and I think Donnie or I don't know who was in charge of renting the ring, but we got a bad ring, and we had Ricky Morton on the show. And I remember I just happened to walk up to give you my music, and at the time I guess you and your brother Tony were putting together the matches, and I remember you looked at Tony and you said, "Man, I don't have nobody to work Ricky Morton," and I said, "Oh," and I just stood there for a minute, and Tony goes, "What about little Tony? Let him work Ricky." And you looked at me and you said, "You want to?" I said, "Yeah, whatever." And he said, "Okay." But the funny part I remember, because in that building, we didn't see each other. So the babies are on one side and the heels are on the other. So we didn't talk. So I didn't even talk to Ricky till I got in the ring. But I remember getting in the ring, and Ricky looked at your brother Alex, who was reffing. He said, "Hey referee, you sure this ring ain't gonna fall?" The way he said it.
And yeah, I'll tell you the good one. When I was young, there's a recreation center here in Morganton, where I'm from, and that was the very first time I saw wrestling. When I was a kid, and I can't remember how old I was, but anyway, I always dreamed of wrestling there. So finally got a show booked there, and we had built this homemade ring. Really wasn't worth a crap, but we had it there, and like an idiot, I think I was the champion then. And so when I booked the matches, I booked the tag team match before the main event, which was me and Super G. And so the tag match was Donnie and my brother Tony were wrestling Robbie Campbell and James Brody, and like an idiot, man, they tore the ring down. So the ref, we had two refs at the time. The one that wasn't in the ring ref in the match comes back there in the dressing room and looks at me and says, "Jeff, they just broke the ring." I said, "Oh my God." So I go to peek in to see what was there. Yeah, it had, I don't know exactly what had happened. One of the side, the frame boards had broke, that connect with the poles.
Mm-hmm.
And so, one of the one side of the ring is like, it's not level. It's like hanging down. So I'm like, oh my God. So I looked at Super G, and the ref was back there that was doing our match. And I said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do false count anywhere. So we ended up having to do a false count anywhere. And I think the only time we got in the ring was at the first of the match when they did the ring introductions. And then, we just, the rest of the time we were on the floor. So, I had to improvise, but that was pretty funny.
Mm-hmm. I'll tell you, another funny story involves me, you, and Donnie, and my cousin Mark. So we go up to Mount Airy, North Carolina, to work for this brother duo, and they had this ring that was like, the padding was like the styrofoam, the big foam pad that you would see like in couches and pillows and that kind of thing. Real fluffy, thick, but it didn't absorb anything. So when you got slammed, man, it was like crazy. But anyway, I remember getting in the ring. It was during our tag match. It was me and you, a Simple Perfection, against Mark, my cousin Mark, and Donnie. And I remember in the ring, Jeff, I heard Donnie tell you, throw me to the floor. And he threw me on the floor, and I jumped down, and he said he called super kick. And I gave Donnie a super kick, and he took this big bump on the floor. And I said, dang, brother, you're all right? And Donnie said, yeah, I had to take a bump on something hard because that ring's too soft. I was like, I started laughing. I said, oh my gosh. But and that happened. And then in that same match, this was the worst, fans. Oh my God. Listen, I was kind of young then. I didn't know who to work. I mean, I knew how to work the crowd. I just didn't understand that when you really, really piss somebody off, leave them alone. And I know, Jeff, you're going to remember this. So we're doing this little opening spot. I'm giving this family on the front row a really, really hard time. I'm calling their kid a brat. Their daughter was probably about 8 or 9 years old, and she was kind of a big girl and really, really into the matches, right? So me and Mark used to do a spot where I would, shoot him in. I'd go for an elbow. He would duck, and he'd clothesline me, and then clothesline me, and then clothesline me over the top rope. And so he went to clothesline me over the top rope, and Jeff's on the apron, and I hit the floor, and I hit the floor in front of these people that I had been antagonizing for like the first 7 or 8 minutes of the match. And I'm on my hands and knees crawling back to the ring, and Jeff, I know you remember this. A little girl comes and field goals me right in the nuts. You remember that, Jeff?
Yeah.
And I turn around like I'm ready to fight somebody, right? And I see it's like a little 8-year-old girl, and I'm like, what in the hell? And I tell that woman, you better control your kid. And I tagged you from the outside, and the ref goes, you can't tag. I'm like, brother, he's got to get in there because I can't breathe. And I had to roll up in the ring, then tag you back. Oh, man. You always hear that saying, they got kicked in your throat. Well, mine was in my brain, okay? That was the hardest I think I've ever been kicked in my life. Oh, my gosh. It was so funny, though. After it was over, but there at the beginning, man, I was just like, man, I'm going to smack this kid.
Dude, I remember that place, man. I remember the first time I got in that ring, I started walking around, and I was like, man, I could feel the plywood.
Yeah, that ring was terrible. But, man, the crowd there ate it up, though. We didn't have to work hard. We just had to understand that ring and how it felt and the bump and everything. But it was.
The ring announcer couldn't read.
No, but
because he called. Let's see, it wasn't Dangerous Donnie. It was Dazzling Donnie.
Yeah,
and you were Treacherous Tony.
Terrific
Tony.
Right.
And I was Gorgeous George. I don't know how he could get Jeff would turn into George.
And to be honest, Jeff, I kind of think, and I might be wrong, but I kind of think that the promoter set him up to do that because they knew that we ran shows somewhere else, and I think he was trying to that to us. But on top of it, also, our matches were way better put together. And I ain't bragging, just the fact that we were trained, they wasn't. But a lot of their matches were not as crisp as ours were. And I remember, I know you remember this at the same time, there was a tag team up there called Bad Medicine. You know where I'm going with this, don't you? I hear you laughing.
Yeah.
And they came to the ring, fans. They were there drunk, and they were trying to cut a promo. They were about 20 years past their prime at that point. And not only that, but they were out there drunk, barely could even stand up, and using the F word on the microphone. And I mean, it was terrible. But I was like, Donnie, what do you think about those guys? And Donnie was like, it looks like they're related to Tommy Rich. I just never even saying that. It was so funny, but man, that was a funny show.
Speaking of drunk,
yeah, except for the drunk, that kind of killed it.
You didn't get to go with us that one time. We got to wrestle in a bar. This was a bar in Belmont. I don't even remember what the name of it was, and I took. My brother Tony and I, we worked a match, and at the time, I was training the kid to wrestle, and he was a pretty good little ref. So, So we took him with us, and I never met this guy before that was booking the show, but we get there, and half the people in the dressing room are drinking. So even the promoter, and unfortunately, I was going to try to just get my little ref there to ref our match, and that would be it. Well, he didn't have any other referees show up, so this kid's having the ref, and I think he's like 14, 15 years old at the time. So he's reffing the whole show for him. Well, the promoter was in the main event, and so Tony and I, we did our match, and we're in the back. We're already changed out, and we're just waiting on the show to be over so we can leave. And they had it, and we were outside the bar. The bar was inside, and they just didn't have room enough for a ring to set up, so we set up outside on a little patio. And then they had a stage out there, and they had used it for a dressing room. They had curtains up where we can change back there or whatever. So we're back there waiting, and we can hear all the ruckus going on in the ring. And we were right beside the ring, so we're there, and the ref comes back there. Our little ref comes back there, and he says, "Let's go." I said, "Well, don't you want to change?" He says, "No, let's leave right now." I said, "Okay." So we leave, and on the way out, we look up in the ring, and fans are in the ring.
Oh, no.
Drunk fans are in the ring. So I'm like, and Braden was the kid's name. He's like, please, let's just get out of here. Get out of here. Go. So we take off and we leave. I said, what the heck happened? He was like, I'm in there reffing. And he said, the promoter grabs me and throws me over the top rope. And then I look up and he said, there are drunk fans getting in the ring. And I was like, oh my God. So, and the kid's like, I've not been trained on how to go over the top rope. And I was like, oh, Lord.
Oh, no.
Here he was, a kid. I'm thinking, oh, what have I done? I took this kid to a bar.
Right. Oh, my gosh. Yeah, I tell you, bar shows are always fun. I know I had a few that you guys came and worked. A little bar I used to run called Rockin' Jacks in High Point, North Carolina. And, man, I had some of the best times in there until it kind of got a little out of control. But I remember one time being in there, and we had a little my good friend Brian from the band Fair Warning was my commentator and ring announcer, and he would commentate over the PA system, which was kind of cool. It was kind of a cool concept, and of course he was comical. He'd make it funny. But I'll never forget, how I used to always think I was Rick Rude or something. I'd always shake my hips at the girls. And there was a whole front row of girls, and all front row. And I remember being up there, and I body slammed whoever I was working. I think it was probably Mark. But I body slammed him. I get up on the second rope, and I start shaking my hips. Man, the girls are screaming, woo! And because I was about 23 then, and I had a pretty tight little booty on me. And they're screaming, and I remember Brian going, ladies, please stop staring at Tony's dick. What he said was hilarious. And then, of course, the girls start screaming, woo, But that was funny. But another funny time there at Rockin' Jacks was the time that the drunk wanted to get in the ring, and of course he thought he did but before the show, he shows up and says, hey, I want to join your wrestling school. Well, I didn't have a school at this time, and I'm like, well, help me put the ring up. That'd be a good start. So this guy starts putting the ring up. Well, he's over there and he's carrying. Now that the ring I had was the ring I got from you, and the tall ring, those poles were so tall, it would take two people to carry those poles. And I'll never forget, as long as I live, this dude picks up the pole, and I said, hold a minute, don't get the pole. I said, you got to take two people. He said, no, I'm going to show you how strong I am. And Jeff, he picks up the pole, and then he takes a bump with it on the floor. It was like the pole gave him a high cross body. Took him down on the ground, right? Up, down, boom. And when he went down, the pole was on his throat, and he's up there trying to get it off, and he's trying not to look like he's in trouble. And, of course, me and Kenny and Mark just start dying laughing. I mean, I am laughing about to pee my pants because it's the funniest sight ever. And I remember one of the ladies there at Rockin' Jacks goes, hey, don't laugh at the guy. He's dying. He was choking himself with the pole. I was like, I tried to tell you not to pick the pole up. But, man, that was hilarious. And then he still wanted to join my school. And then a month later, I ended up getting into a shoot fight with this dude because he comes back to the show, and now he's trying to be funny and be a part of the show when he's not even on the show. And end up stealing. He went and stole, like, during intermission, we were going to have a match to crown a new champion. So I had a new belt there on the ring announcer table. And somehow or another, this crazy guy goes over, gets the belt, puts it on, goes to the bar, orders beers, and starts cutting a Stone Cold Steve Austin promo in the bar. And people are in there going nuts. And I'm totally clueless that this guy's even got my belt. And then my cousin Mark comes back there and goes, hey, Tony, there's a guy out there at the bar that's got a belt just like yours. I'm like, what? Yeah, he's out there drinking beer and doing a Stone Cold promo. I'm like, what? So I walk over. First thing I do is go to the table, and, of course, my belt's gone. So I walk over there, and right as he's getting ready to turn the beer up like Stone Cold, I rip the belt off of him. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? You can't be messing with the belt. Oh, man, I just want to join your school. I said, and I knew then he was drunk. So I'm like, well, know, you have to get with me next week, whatever. So I go back to the ring and I put the belt back on the table, and then I thought, okay, so I'm in the back telling all the guys, okay, guys, this is what we're doing. And then the next match was you guys and Donnie and James, and then Donnie and James do a tornado DDT on the floor, end up kicking this kid in the face. Remember that? They kicked the kid in the face. Remember that, Jeff?
Yeah.
Kicked the kid in the face. Kid's probably 10 years old. He got a black eye now. Now I'm like out there going, oh my God, this right here is going to cost me. They're going to shut me down. This mom's going to sue me. And I walk over and I'm like, hey guys, listen, I'll give you guys your ticket money back. I apologize. I'm sorry my wrestlers got too close, blah, blah. And the mom and dad both say to me, oh no, it's okay. He goes to school Monday. He's got something to brag about. Okay. So I'm like, okay, nothing else can go wrong. So after that match, I take another intermission. And I'm standing over there, and then I'm getting ready to start back up, and I hear this crash, like something breaking. I'm like, no, what the heck was that? I walk back through the locker room area there, and there's my camera, my camcorder laying on the ground. It's in like 4 pieces. And I look at one of my biggest badassest wrestlers I had at the time, Stewart. Remember Stewart? And I said, what happened to my camera? And Stewart looked scared like crapless, and he's like, Tony. And he pointed, and guess who it was? My little fake Stone Cold guy. And I lost it. So I go over and I spin him around, and I'm like, you're going to pay? I'm screaming, you're going to pay for my camera? You can give me $500 right now and take it out of your butt, blah, blah, blah. And my dad was there. And so my dad's trying to de-escalate the situation. So he comes over there and he's, Dad, Tony, just let it go. Dad, no. And then my ex-wife was there, and she's like, just walk away. You walk away. I said, I am going to walk away. I'm going to walk away. But this somebody's just going to the hospital, and I'm just talking junk, right? And he says, the guy tell me, you better be glad your wife and your daddy are holding you back, or I'd stomp a mud hole in you and walk it dry. He's trying to cut a Stone Cold promo on me, right? So, Jeff, all I did, I told my dad, I said, Dad, you better move because I'm fixing to punch him. My dad's like, nope. I said, Dad, you move or I'm hitting you. So Dad moved. And as soon as he moved, I threw the biggest, baddest sucker punch I could ever throw on this dude. Hit him in the jaw, and he went down like a freaking sack of potatoes. And when that happened, Stewart, Kenny, Mark, and somebody else, they come and grab me and drag me out of the bar. And I'm just kicking. Let me go. I'm going to kill him. And then he comes over there, and they're holding me down, and he's yelling out the window or the door, you better be glad your boys are holding you back because I would kill you. And I remember Stewart going, if we let him go, he's going to kill you. And it was so funny. But that was the first time I'd ever gotten into a fight with a fan ever. And then I'm sitting there, and I'm still fuming. And I know you get like this. When something really makes you mad and you feel like that you didn't get justice, so I'm sitting on the back of the U-Haul truck in the back alleyway there, and I'm just screaming. Or I'm sitting there just fuming, and this guy's still at the door yelling, and I hear Stewart go, well, if we let him go, he's going to kill you. And so Stewart pushes him all the way, and he walks over there, and he goes, you okay, man? I said, yeah, I'm okay. He goes, are you sure? I said, no. He goes, I see the look in your eye. You just need to chill out for a minute. And Stewart was a big guy. He was a big dude. And old biker guy, And his wife was funny. But his wife got me going again. She looked at me. She said, I wouldn't take that shit if I was you. I'd go beat his ass. And I said, you know what? I am. And I took off again. And by that time, Stewart couldn't. And as I'm running, I hear her yelling, I want to see some blood. Because she was drunk too, But she was instigating me. And so I go get running again. And this time Kenny and Mark are holding me. And I think maybe 2 other wrestlers are in there. And Stewart has got his hand on this guy's chest telling the guy, you need to go on, you need to go on, you need to go on. But being a wrestler, Jeff, and being a heel, I saw I had one small window of opportunity to kick him in the nuts. So I drilled him one more time. And yes, fans, Terrific Tony sucker punched this guy and kicked him in the nuts, and he didn't get one punch in on me. I was pretty proud of myself. But I went home with a broken camera, and but it was still a fun night. But it was one of the crazy nights of pro wrestling.
Wow. I think the only time I've ever done anything that didn't get physical with a fan was we were doing a show at the old Hildebrand gym, and there was a kid. He's probably 9, 10, 11 years old, dipping in the crowd, and he's got his little 20-ounce bottle, and he's spitting in it and whatever. And I come out there for my match, and I'm just working the crowd like I normally do. And this kid is cussing me for everything I'm worth. I'm just like, I look down at him. I said, "Let me tell you something, boy. If I was your daddy, I'd bend you over my knee and wear you out." And sitting beside of him was this big 300-pound fat woman. Stands up and says, "I'm glad I'm his mama, and I'm glad he's cussing you out because you ain't nothing but a sorry." And then she started cussing me out, and I was like, "Oh my God!"
Oh goodness gracious!
That's the funniest thing.
That when you said that, Jeff, you talked about the Hildebrand gym. It reminded me of another funny story that happened there. This was when I was running Babyface. You turned me baby, and you and I had a little feud going, and then we brought in my cousin Mark, and then he turned on me, and we played the brother gimmick, and we did all that. And then when that was winding up, we were going to put together the Palace of Pain. And so on this show, I can't remember, but I remember I think I think the original Palace of Pain then was like it was you and Mark and your brother Tony. And I can't remember who else was in the ring. I'm sure it was probably Donnie. But on this show, you and Tony and Mark are in the ring putting the boots to. I want to say it might have been Sweet Daddy Brown and Donnie, but anyway, you guys are in there putting the boots to him. And earlier in that night, I had wrestled Mark, and over in the corner was this Hispanic family. And they had, really got, behind me. I was their favorite or whatever. And I remember coming out, running to the ring, and everybody thought, "Oh man, this is it. Tony's going to clear house." And I jump up in the ring and I circle around, and then I just turn around and I punch Donnie with the brass knuckles, and he goes down, and we all start putting boots on him again. And then of course the locker room, all the baby faces come out, and we scatter. But I remember get out of the ring, and that Mexican guy is just yelling at me. And I said, "Shut your mouth, Speedy Gonzalez." When I said that, they started cussing me out in Spanish, and I couldn't understand what they were saying, and it made me mad. But I was like, I can always say I've never been cussed out in Spanish before, and I just got cussed out in Spanish. And I remember you said, "What did he say to you?" I said, "Something about Bessamacula or something." And you said, "A Coca-Cola." It was hilarious. But we did that. That was fun. But man, we had some funny road stories that's happened. And what about the time, Jeff, that we all went down to the Antioch Speedway? That was a fun night.
Yes, it was. I remember we had like 3 matches. We had 2 during their. Seemed like they had their practice, and we had like 2 matches before they did their heat races for qualifying, and then they took an intermission, and during the intermission they had a driver's meeting. And I remember we were in the ring, me and you were taking up against Donnie and my brother Tony. And
Yep.
Man, they were all the drivers and crew members and anybody that was on pit road was lined up along pit wall watching us. And I remember I've still got that on videotape. and you can hear the guy over the PA say, "All right, everybody, you need to get to the driver's meeting now." They couldn't
Yeah.
get the drivers to the driver's meeting. They were too busy watching the wrestling.
Yep.
And then, of course, you know how that goes, man. I always get screwed. Some other company took it from me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, hey, I came to them. I came to the people at Antioch Speedway. I said, hey, how about let me try to do wrestling here. And the guy loved the idea. And then they let somebody else come in. And then I came that night when they did the other one because I wanted to see, okay, who stole my show.
Right.
And I was there at the Speedway, and I saw the guys that run the Speedway, and I kind of smarted off to the guy that owned the Speedway. You know, I told him, I said, man, this is bull crap. And I didn't use that word. I used the BS word.
Right, yeah.
And I said, man, I came to you. I was the one that brought this idea up. And now you want to bring somebody else into it. I said, man, this was my idea. You know, it wasn't yours. And I said, you take my idea and involve somebody else and screw me over.
Mm-hmm.
I said, that's fine, man. You know, if that's the way you want to do business, then that's fine. Of course, they closed down shortly after that because we don't know how to run a business. But
because
anyway,
they are losers.
Yeah. And then I sat and watched it. Yeah. And then, you know, I'm sitting there and I watched. They did all their wrestling. They did after they had like a promo during the intermission of the racing. And then all their wrestling matches were going to take place after the races were over. And I know a guy that raced there, and he said, no, nobody stayed for the wrestling.
Oh, wow. I said, yeah, we're out of here.
Yeah, serves them right. But anyway, they had a promo, and supposedly the big baby face who wore overalls and looked like a country farmer comes up, and they drive him up in a pickup truck there in that little grassy field. Instead of him walking, you know, to the ring and doing whatever, it was awful. And them guys, they didn't know what they were doing.
Wow, that's crazy how and that's just typical how things are. You go out and get a good thing going, and then somebody sees how good you're doing, and they come in and then they kill it for you. And you know that kind of happened to me. I had a building up there in High Point that I would run. Another organization used to run it, and then they stopped running shows. So I went up there, talked to the lady, and I said, "Hey, you know, I do wrestling. I would love to come up." And she said, "Yeah, sure." And Jeff, I got this building at a great price, and the only downside was they didn't have chairs, so I would have to go out and rent chairs. First couple of shows, I had to go rent chairs. So then after that, they got chairs in or bleachers or whatever it was. And so, but she still gave me a great price. So I start running. I'm doing a show, and I'm packing it out pretty good. Then another wrestling or another guy thinks he wants to promote shows, and then he comes up there, and then they end up breaking a door or something. And so, but they confused them with me. And said, "Oh no more wrestling can be there because they're too destructive." And so I went to that lady and I'm like, "Listen, that wasn't me. You know, that wasn't my company. That was somebody else." And yeah, I understand, but you know, the president's like, "No more." And I'm like, "Dang it!" So I had a good thing, and then somebody else came in, and of course I never went to their shows, but from what I understand, they didn't draw as well as me, but. And I'm not bragging. I was smart. I would book a name. I'd have Jimmy Vad or Ivan Koloff or Bobby Eaton or somebody worthy, and put on a classic, you know, family oriented wrestling show. And these guys come in during this time. The ECW stuff was big, so I'm sure they were probably doing all that stuff. But it's sad how, like, you know, somebody can go in and you put all your work into putting it together, and then you got some knucklehead comes in and tries to take it from you, and then they have a terrible product and just ruins it for everybody.
Yeah, remember we had the Riverside place when we were doing pretty good there, and then here comes this one goofball. He wanted to work on my show, and I didn't know him from Adam. I'm not putting you on my show, and nobody had seen him wrestle before.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember he went up to George South and said, "Hey, we used to run the roads together." And George said, "I ain't never met you before in my life. What are you talking about? Who are you?"
Uh-huh.
And so the goose stole Riverside from me, and I don't know why the owner let that goofball come in there. And of course, half his wrestlers were drinking, so it's like, man,
it's
whatever.
It's a sad story or sad situation. Well,
yeah,
you got us. You got a really funny one to take us home on this next one.
Oh goodness. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I've seen or I had done. Goodness, I really can't think of anything right now, to be honest with you.
Yeah, me either. My mind's going blank, but I know we've definitely had some good times, and I know after this coronavirus is over, we're going to have more good times and be able to create some more funny memories. I'm hoping this coronavirus is gone by May, because in May we've got the NAWA has got a huge event in the works, and as once I know that show is a definite go, I'm going to tell all you listeners about it. You're definitely going to be excited. I will tell you this: there are going to be a couple of WWE Hall of Famers on that show. And one of the greatest tag teams in the NAWA are going to be there. So you definitely don't want to miss that. But like I said, right now the show is kind of up in the air, and depending upon how this coronavirus pandemic goes. But I'm hoping that it will pass over. But Jeff, thank you for being my guest and sharing some stories and sharing your insight on the Jim Crockett Cup. And next week, fans, I think Jeff and I will, if you want to, Jeff, we'll do another one. This time we'll figure out what big event from the past that we can discuss and talk about and touch on, and maybe tell you people some more funny road stories. And we look forward to that. And Jeff, thank you again. I appreciate you coming on the show.
You're very welcome, my friend. Anytime.
All right, you fans, take care, and make sure that you go like us on our Facebook page and download each and every exciting show. The prior shows we're on all podcast platforms that you listen to, iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, iHeartRadio, YouTube. We're all out there. Just search the Binge Buster Show and go back and listen. And I will tell you, if you want to hear some funny stories, Jeff, I don't know, I'm going to touch on this a little bit, but I had Jake the Snake Roberts on one of my shows. Have you got a chance to listen to that yet?
Honestly, I haven't, but I will have to do that, though. I will try to do that this weekend.
Listen, if you want some entertainment, you got to listen to the one with Jake Roberts. He tells this rib, and I'm going to tell you this as we go off the air. He tells this rib how in the 80s, when he was running the feud with Ravishing Rick Rude, excuse me, and you know how Rick Rude was. I mean, he was a very intense person anyway. So remember when Rick Rude used to pull the girls out of the crowd and kiss them on? And so Jake thought it'd be a funny rib to have his girlfriend that he was seeing at the time to be one of the girls. And he says that they pay her $500 to get in the ring and kiss Rick Rude and pass out and all this stuff. So he said, besides, you got to do it because tonight's your turn to buy the cocaine. So she says, okay. So she does it. And but before she went to the ring, she went to the parking lot with Jake. And Jake let her kiss his snake. And she held something in her mouth from the snake, from Jake's snake. And when she got in the ring, she put it in Rick Rude's mouth. And Rick Rude found out it was Jake Roberts that put her up to it. And he went to Jake's hotel room, kicked the door in, and tried to kick Jake's ass. Could you imagine, though? And Jake said, at the time I thought it'd be funny. He said, but, seeing how mad Rude was, He said it wasn't a good time. he said, but smoking pot and doing drugs will make you do some stupid stuff. But that's just one of the stories he had. But he had a bunch of them. But man, that one was like, oh my gosh, I couldn't believe he did that. But yeah, Jake was out there back in those days. I'm sure he probably still is a little bit. But man, what a funny story that was. Craziness. But anyway, fans, make sure you go download our episodes and make sure you like our Facebook page, and we will see you next week here on the Binge Buster Show. Are you looking for a quality pre-owned car at an affordable price? Then look no farther than Autosville. At Autosville, they offer a car to fit any budget, from vans, trucks, SUVs, compact, sedans, or sports cars. Autosville has you covered. They also offer financing. Autosville can get you riding even if you have no credit, repossessions, bankruptcy, divorce. It doesn't matter. Autosville has unique relationships with lenders that can help you get riding today. So don't hesitate. Give the professionals at Autosville a call today at 704-380-4000. That's 704-380-4000. Or contact them on the web at autosville.com. But make that switch today and give the professionals at Autosville a call. Let them get you riding and tell them the Binge Buster Show sent you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for another edition of the Binge Buster Show. Make sure you tune in each week and download us on your favorite podcast platform.